Good morning and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as we talk Joao Neves. It's getting exciting. I don't think we'll do this deal, but I have to say, in relation to Lenny Yoro and Joao Neves, there's definitely stuff going on. Can Man United pull these deals off? Some people think they can. Some people think that there's some sort of structure with Benfica that the super agent George Mendes can help us with. We'll be talking about that. We've also got an expose from Luke Shaw, basically blaming Ten Hag's medical team, Man United's medical team, on why he is injured. He's pulled no punches in this interview. That's out this morning. We'll talk and react to that as well. Also going to be talking about a few other bits of transfer news and, of course, what's going on with the managerial situation at Manchester United, because we may have had a weekend, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I certainly have. But we're about to hit what could be a big week for Manchester United again. Is your nose blocked? No. Fantastic cover from last night from Tull and Kev. I was in Nottingham last night for a charity game in the day, but more importantly, a school reunion last night at the Rudfest in Ruddington, down at the White Horse pub. Shout out. What a great night it was. And I did a lot of talking loud, so I've got a bit of a sore throat this morning, but nice to get away. I also want to talk about this guy as well. Yeah, some of the criticism I've seen about Kobbie Mainoo on Friday night was absolutely ridiculous, and I think that I saw a lot of the social media reaction yesterday. Obviously, we know as Manchester United fans, it's our responsibility to protect our young players. Look, if he's 27 and he's 28 or he's 25 and he's had a bad game for England, fine. He's 19. He's 19. He's not even. He only broke into the first team at Christmas. You know, there's been a demand to put him in the England team. He's barely played for England, and the press turned on him on Friday night. And I was like, hold on a minute. Phil Foden was shit. Declan Rice was shit. Kyle Walker was shit. Like, there's 3 or 4 players that are established England players in their 20s who were shit on Friday. Oh, let's go in on Kobbie Mainoo. It's like, I saw the papers on Saturday morning, and Saka was the picture for England being shit on 4 or 5 newspapers. He came on as a sub. Make it make sense. I'm not going to say what some of you are going to say because I can't be bothered with that. But, like, you know, we're not going to make it about that, but they make it about that because they target certain players. And I did a watch along, and Mainoo is not at fault for that goal. He's just not at fault. Like, Ramsdale shouldn't get done on his front post. John Stone shouldn't let him get the shot off, and Kyle Walker's not even at right back. We in this country, and I know we get a lot of people watching outside of the UK, are terrible at this. We are terrible at overhyping somebody and then chopping their legs off, and that to me was breakneck speed to do that to Mainoo on Friday. Disgusting. But it won't happen with Man United fans because we appreciate what we've got and we know he's only young. So but it has to be said, I mean, some of them were giving him a 4 out of 10 and stuff like that. Absolute bollocks. Anyway, welcome to Members Club, CJ. You're a legend. Let's get into the news. Sunday morning, always exciting. As a youngster, we'd get them Sunday papers and you'd read all about these transfers, and it was different sort of news. So there's a lot to get into this morning. Let's start off with Joao Neves. Obviously, I was keeping an eye on the show last night. I listened to what Tull had to say on the show, and looking around, it really is interesting around Joao Neves and Lenny Yoro. Now, there's a story coming out from France that Real Madrid want Yoro and he wants to go there, but Real Madrid do not want to pay more than 30 million quid for him. So it's opening up this scenario where Man United want him. And as we've said before, there are 5 strands of a transfer. Do we really want him? Is it his agent using us? Is it his club using us? Is it genuine that we want him? There's so many different reasons why we might be in for Yoro, but I think Joao Neves is the one that's really interesting me at the moment, because it feels more like, I know we probably do want Yoro, but we probably also want Vinicius Junior. It's not going to happen. But I think with Joao Neves, there just seems to be something significant going on there. Now, I don't think we can pull this deal off, but let me just sort of summarise there is a lot of Portuguese reports which I wouldn't necessarily take a notice of per se, but we're now getting a lot of reports around the UK press about Joao Neves and Manchester United's interest in him. So much so that apparently there's talk of second bids. Now, I don't believe we put a bid in at all, really. I think what has happened here is that this is a player that we've scouted extensively. And if you've watched Joao Neves or you haven't watched Joao Neves, what I would say is... I was out last night. I'm not tired, but my nose is running. I don't know whether it's bloody hay fever again or what. It's getting on my tits. But I think that when it comes to Joao Neves, what needs to be said is that we spoke about an article probably about February time saying that INEOS wanted to build a relationship with Jorge Mendes because he is almost the godfather of the football agent world. Obviously, Mino Raiola passed away, and I think Jorge Mendes has always been up there with Raiola as the two, most known super agents in world football. There was a piece in February where Man United were having conversations with Mendes, to build that relationship. Because my understanding of Jorge Mendes is that obviously he used to be Ronaldo's agent. I think he was David De Gea's agent. But more now, he wanders into deals and gets them over the line. He's like a super agent. And his name has been mentioned around Joao Neves. So I'm starting... Look, I don't think we can get Joao Neves because Benfica want the release clause of €100 million or €120 million, and we haven't got that money. But that should be the end of the matter. But what we're getting is constant conversation about Man United and Joao Neves and restructuring the deal and add-ons and this, this will total up to that. And I think that it's encouraging, and I hope there's something in it, because I have spoken about Joao Neves a few times, and I don't have a Benfica season ticket, and I don't watch lots of them. But what I have seen of him, and I remember talking about him in January when we were doing a show and he was mentioned, is that I just genuinely think he goes to Man City and becomes the next Rodri. I think he's that good. And look, he's young, but that's not a barrier. He's probably... I don't know whether he starts for Portugal in the Euros, but if he does, he's going to have half the world after him. I think he's a really, really interesting profile of player in exactly the position that Manchester United needed. We need somebody that we can... Kobe Mainoo can't be the 6, he's got to be the 8. So Joao Neves, Kobe Mainoo and Bruno Fernandes as a midfield 3 would be exceptional, in my mind, to build a project around. So look, I bring it into the show at the start of the show this morning because I think it's really interesting. I don't think we can do it because I don't think the financials make sense. But I have to say... God, I knew I had something stuck in my throat. Oh, God. What is wrong with me this morning? Nose is running like a tap. Oh, God, I hate hay fever. It's not the fact that I've only had 6 hours sleep and I was drinking all day yesterday. Yeah, I think that there's just something about this Joao Neves. Now, where would you put him on the hotter meter mark? There's something about Joao Neves that's just really... It's one to watch. One to watch, because we'll talk about the manager situation in a minute. And I know a lot of people are very frustrated about what's going on with the manager situation. And I don't really want to talk about it, but we have to because there's a new week starting tomorrow. But as much as I'm frustrated with what INEOS are doing, and absolutely what I said on Friday night still stands, and it's not going to change, and I think everybody agrees with me on this one, it's weak ownership. Like, whether they think they know what they're doing or not, you've lost. Like, you have lost, INEOS, Sir Jim, you've lost. Like, you can think you've not lost, but you have. Like, even people who want Ten Hag out, the media, ex-players, everybody is looking at INEOS and going, this is not the way to run a football club. You should not have let this drift 2 weeks after the FA Cup final, halfway into June. Nobody knows who the manager is. They've got it wrong. Now, they'll sit there in their room, in their bunker, going, no, we don't care, we're going to make the right decision. And that is fine. But the court of public opinion always wins, and they've been too slow. They've been way too slow on this. They've, too many cooks spoil the broth, is a saying, where too many people are involved in a big decision. And they've overanalyzed this. They've made a right mess of it. And they could make it worse. They could follow the Southgate route. They could bring Pochettino in, whatever. But what I've always said is, as much as they've made a big mistake, if they announce Ten Hag staying tomorrow and then you buy Joao Neves next week, we're forgetting the last 3 weeks. They can turn it around. And I think that's really important, because as much as you might be annoyed and frustrated by INEOS at the moment, I still believe there will be moments of, wow, this is amazing, this is really good. And maybe Joao Neves will be that, because that's the sort of out of the box, we can't do that deal that I'm saying we can't do. So if they pull out a Joao Neves, then I would be immensely happy and immensely impressed, because I don't know how we do that deal, because we haven't got £100 million to spend on one player. So one to watch, but what a player. If you haven't seen anything about Joao Neves, I mean, basically, he's sort of like, I don't want to label him, but I just think there's Rodri there. I think there's Gerrard there. I'm throwing names out because I think he can basically play 6, 8, and probably 10 if he wanted to. But I see him as a conductor, and I think that if Man United can get that deal done, it would be fantastic, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see on it. Good morning, Mark. Great work all the time. Appreciate the channel and everyone attached to it. Patrick, thank you. Scott Treacher says 50 million plus Greenwood. I don't think Greenwood will go to Benfica, although there's talk of Turkish interest in Greenwood now. I think he'll go Italy or Spain. Ownership worries me after how they treat staff, says Nick James. Does Ten Hag return to Carrington tomorrow, says Sanil? I think it'll be too early to return to Carrington, but I don't know on that. I seriously don't think we should go for Neves, says Lee, Cape Town. Look at all the other big names they've sold that have not pulled up trees, to be honest. But I think this lad's really special, mate. When you listen to Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes, I think there's something really special about him. And also, I think when you're a winger or a striker, yeah, it can go good, it can go bad. But look at Jude Bellingham at 16 playing for Birmingham. I think when you look at Kobe Mainoo for Man United, I think when you're a young lad playing in a midfield as a teenage, Cesc Fabregas as well, I think it's harder to bluff when you play in the midfield. It's like if you're playing well in the midfield as a teenager for a big club, you're probably a very good player. Whereas as a winger or as a striker, it doesn't work out. But I think in the midfield, it's harder to, bluff it really, because it's hard work in the midfield. I would go for Vafer from Feyenoord for the DM position. His stats are a lot better than Neves or Henderson, says Bogdan. Welcome to Members Club, Sam. Huang says, buy me and I'll carry this club. Huang Hee-chan. Sir Jim Radcliffe, literally playing Monopoly, bought a stake in United, clears the dollars to invest. Now they want to sell Nice to be able to do something, says Big Z. There we go. Thank you very much for that. Right, I want to talk about this next. I like these sort of conversations. Luke Shaw has come out and basically slammed. Well, I've read the article. I like Luke Shaw. I think some people might read it a little bit differently, but basically Luke Shaw has expressed a dissatisfaction at why he's struggling to be fit for England and missed the second half of the season because Manchester United rushed him back in January. So Ten Hag's name gets mentioned, and to be honest with you, I think it's a bloody joke. But this is what Luke Shaw had to say. I felt something against Aston Villa and came off at half-time. This was in January, maybe early February. Might have been early February, actually. I remember the game. He came off at half-time, and I remember saying at the time, he won't play for a few weeks now, and then he ended up playing the very next week. But he says, I felt something against Villa and I came off at half-time. I didn't train the whole week, and when the scan came back, there wasn't too much on the scan. I trained the day before we played Luton, and if the manager asks me to play, I'm never going to say no. But I shouldn't have played. It's kind of everyone's fault, partly my fault, partly the medical staff. I think everyone would admit that. So it's an interesting article in the sense that it could go lots of different ways. I think some people will use it as a stick to beat Ten Hag. Some people will use it as a stick to beat Luke Shaw. And some people will use it as a stick to beat the medical staff. Luke Shaw is injury prone. As somebody that really likes him, Luke Shaw is injury prone. And if he hadn't played against Luton and had 2 weeks off and come back, he probably would have got injured very, very quickly afterwards. I'm worried about Luke Shaw in the Euros. Apparently, he won't even be fit for the first game, and then we're going to play every 3 or 4 days. I really am scared that Luke Shaw's going to get injured again because I just don't. I think he's become Cavani. Fantastic player, but at some point, any moment, you're going to get news that he's out for a month. So I think that's what Luke Shaw is now. So I understand his frustration, but honestly, I would say to him, yeah, all right, maybe you shouldn't have played against Luton, but you'd have got injured a couple of weeks later anyway, and that would have been 2 weeks later from where you are now, and maybe you would have missed the Euros completely. It's not like... What I'm trying to say is, yes, I get his frustration, but it's not like he wouldn't have got injured again and again anyway. Like, he's an injury-prone player now. You can't say, oh, I might miss the Euros because of that they played me against Luton. You're injury-prone, unfortunately. I think if you want to blame anybody on this, it's the medical team. That's what they're paid to do. As a manager, and I've coached as well as played, if I've got a player that's really good, I want to play them. And what high-level managers do is they speak to their medical team. The best one I ever saw was Amazon Spurs series with Mourinho. That, I think it was episode 3 or 4, where he's talking to the medical staff. It's the biggest insight you'll ever get because he's Mourinho, one of the greatest managers in the world. This is what a manager does. He's talking to his medical team and saying, because loads of people are injured, how long can you get? Is there anything you can, and I think when the medical guy says 4 weeks and Mourinho says 3, and he goes, it's going to be 4. Managers want the best team on the pitch because if they lose games, they lose their job. So all these prats out there who go, oh, it's the manager's fault that these players are getting injured. Manager's job is to win games of football or manager loses job. Medical team is there to tell him they're not playing. Managers do not overrule medical teams without everybody finding out about it because players will go mad, medical team will go mad. And also, at Manchester United, I've called Ten Hag a laptop manager. He, literally, when a player comes back, even if they're playing well, 60th minute, off you come. So we know we've got a manager and a coaching network around him with Van der Gaag and McLaren who do follow what the medical team tell them. And the evidence is there. So I think when Luke Shaw's saying this, it's not on Ten Hag. It's not on Luke Shaw. It's on the medical team. Because we already know we've got players and managers and coaches who follow the medical team because we see it all the time. I've seen it with Martinez come back off after 60 minutes. We've seen it with Eriksen off after 60 minutes because you're coming back from an injury. So Luke Shaw's frustration on this one is interesting, but ultimately the medical team would have said he's all right to play. And obviously he wasn't and he got injured. And it's as simple as that. And I think it's a catalogue of mistakes this season that we've seen time and time again. Martinez, end of last season, should have been back for the start of the season we've just had, has to have the same operation again. We've seen it time and time and time again, and they need to revolutionise that department. It's as simple as that. So, look, I think it's quite interesting what Luke Shaw has said, but, and also it's interesting that he said, if a manager asks me to play, I'm never not going to play. Well, that's the most stupid thing I've ever heard from a footballer say. It's admirable, but it's bloody stupid. That's what destroyed Martial's career under Ollie. You shouldn't be playing if you're injured, Luke. It's as simple as that because this is what happens. You've got, and there are players who go the other way. I mean, I've spoken to some ex-players who say, God, his injury was in his head. Not like they've got brain damage, but there's nothing wrong with them. They just go, oh, I've got a bit of a tight hamstring or anything like that. So there are players who play up to it, and then there's players like Bruno who want to play all the time. How will anyone sign for us when they don't know who the manager is, says Aaron? Well, we do need to get this moving very, very quickly. Quite a lot to talk about on the show this morning, and I want to talk about a few other bits on transfers as well. But of course, the manager situation is very much up and running. We had no update last week, and I'm going to sit firmly in the situation that I would advise all of you to sit in, that we can't say next week we will know. I hope we do. I really hope we know tomorrow. And my inclination is to think that we should do. But my inclination last Sunday was that we would know last week. So all I know is that nobody knows anything. All I know is that the decision process is ongoing. And as much as I find it absolutely incredible that this could go on for another 3 weeks, there's actually no clarity from the club or anybody near INEOS to say that this will be solved soon. There was this weird thing where some media outlets said that we were going to know on Friday. And as I said to you on Friday morning, I was told by two very interesting people that it can break any second. It could break now. It won't break today, but it could. But there's no, Man United, INEOS, no source has ever said, yes, it's going to break on Friday. You know, by midday on Friday, you're going to know. No, nobody is saying that at all. There's no reason to think it will break tomorrow. There isn't. I hope it does, but there isn't. As for where we stand at the moment, I think Ten Hag is still on holiday. Might have come back by now. I don't know. I think Pochettino remains the favourite with the bookies, which is scary, I know. And Southgate still, in certain circles, is being spoken about as a guy that INEOS really, really like. I was reading something last night, actually, from one of the news outlets, and they were basically saying that even if Ten Hag survives this year, Manchester United see Gareth Southgate as the true custodian of their future of INEOS at Manchester United and admire what he's done with England. And I just think, you know, it's not about Southgate, really. It isn't. If there is any substance to the fact that INEOS want to bring Gareth Southgate in to manage Manchester United, then they are a bunch of clowns and they belong in a circus, because they just don't understand what Sir Jim Radcliffe's not a lifelong Man United fan if he thinks Southgate is a solution for Manchester United. He's got to be the only Man United fan in living memory who thinks that Gareth Southgate's a Man United guy. I mean, what was he doing as a lifelong Man United fan? Walking around with earplugs in and a blindfold on. He just doesn't have a bloody clue, does he? And I hate to say that, but he doesn't have a clue if he thinks Southgate's the right guy for Man United. I mean, it makes me want to project vomit onto my laptop, just thinking of that Pratt walking out of the tunnel at Old Trafford and walking up and standing in the home dugout. I mean, I've said this so many times, but what is it that's appealing about Southgate? Is it his bang average playing career? Is it his political interviews? You know, he's very bland. Is it the fact that he got Middlesbrough relegated? Is it the fact that he's bottled 3 major trophies for England with some of the best players we've ever had? I mean, is it scintillatingly shit football? Is it his ability to be, you know, 1-0 down to Iceland at home in the 12th minute and have one shot on target? I mean, it's just tactically inept. Is it the waistcoat? Says C. So no, look, I'd rather have Pochettino than Southgate, but I don't want Pochettino. But the Southgate thing, I just find, I don't even blame Southgate, really. Well, how can you? It's not his fault. I just think INEOS are clueless. Absolutely. I mean, who's Dan Ashworth if he's... I mean, it's terrifying that our new director of football loves Gareth Southgate. It's absolutely terrifying that Sir David Brailsford, whose specialism is cycling, loves Gareth Southgate. Like, I don't for 1 minute think Omar Barada or Blanc rate Southgate. And they're the guys you want to be listening to. Really. Hoverboard says, what's wrong with your throat? I was out very late last night at a sort of festival, so I had to talk very loud, and yeah. And now hay fever's hitting, which is annoying. I don't know what to do about that. Good morning, Mark. Thank you very much for that. It's not me tuned in the media that show had the pins removed from his leg earlier this season. He has not been managed well returning from this, says Chris and Michael Kendrick. Thanks for the super chat. That Tommy says United. Laser says Eric Ten Hag is staying. They won't announce anything. Mate, this is a good point. I'm glad you've made it, because you're wrong. Manchester United, there is a Laser thinks, and he's not the only person, that there'll be no announcement from INEOS at all because they're going to keep Ten Hag and they don't need to make an announcement. You're wrong, because INEOS have made a big deal about a strategic review, and they have to conclude the review. So they have to make some sort of announcement. They are the ones that have put it out there that they're having a review. They are the ones that have allowed it to be out there that they've spoken to representatives of other managers. They can't just let this drift. There will be some sort of announcement. It might not be an official announcement unless they sack him, but there will be like a Romano or an Ornstein drop if we keep Ten Hag, saying that Ten Hag is going to stay. It will be reported. Rob says it doesn't need to be reported. No, it doesn't, Rob, but it does. And people will say, well, what are you talking about? No, they don't have to put anything out there, but they will. Because this ain't bloody your local dairy. This is Manchester United Football Club, and everybody knows there's been a strategic review, and everyone knows we've spoken to representatives of other managers. So at some point, they've got to put out there that the review is done. Because otherwise, what we're going to do for the next 6 months, be like, are they going to sack him? Like, there has to be some sort of, statement, not statement, you know what I mean? There has to be. Eric Ten Hag, you've done that from Laser. Thanks for the content, Mark, says Dean. How will anyone sign for us when they don't know? We've done that from Aaron as well. You know what's disturbing, says Dane, is that Ashworth hasn't had a manager that is not someone other than English, says Dane. Look, I acknowledge that Dan Ashworth is a good reputation as a director of football. But I've said it before, this is Manchester United. You prove yourself at Man United. You don't come in with respect and trust. We're Manchester United. We're not Brighton. We're not England. And we're not Newcastle. We're Manchester United. You come in. Don't come in with your reputation of who you are. You work hard and you earn trust and respect. I think there's big question marks about Dan Ashworth. I really do. There is. You know, I'm not doing a show on Dan Ashworth here, but there is question marks. Some of the signings that apparently he made didn't even make. So his relationship with Gareth Southgate is a massive concern. That is not good judgment. You're one of the few people in England who actually think Southgate's decent. So there are question marks about Ashworth, and he's got a lot to prove. But there's so have INEOS, so is Jason Wilcox, so is Barada. So thank you very much for that. Good point. My hay fever seems to be really bad after it rains, says Jay. Mark, destroy Southgate with his winning stats, says Tinted. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Few other bits of transfer news I wanted to go for you as well this Sunday morning. Outgoings wise, I mean, look, it's the 10th of June tomorrow. And that in itself is rather concerning as we approach the middle of June. I think the transfer window officially does open very, very soon. I think Mason Greenwood is a deal that we can move on. I mean, Jadon Sancho worries me a lot. Dortmund are the only club interested and they want a loan deal. Obviously, Tull last night was talking about Amrabat. No decision's been made on him yet. I think that there are so many things ongoing at the moment. Branthwaite not being called up to the England squad means that there's a decision that could be made there, but apparently he's going to go on holiday now. So there's just so much uncertainty around United at the moment, and it's hard to grasp what will bring a bit of clarity. Certainly, a decision around who our manager's going to be will be a big kickstart to that. But even then, do you think that naturally leads towards signings? Because Branthwaite's the best part of 60 million. Elise is the best part of 60 million. Joao Neves is the best part of 70 million. We probably don't even have 60 million at the moment without selling players. So I think that as much as people probably don't want to hear it, the manager situation probably doesn't suddenly kickstart loads of signings, because I don't think we've got the money there to go and do 2 or 3 significant signings. It's interesting. It's always interesting, of course, but I am sort of, as I said to you on Friday night, like, by this time, for most of the last 10 years, we've done something. Whether it's advancing a deal that ultimately ends up getting done, Harry Maguire, getting deals done like Dalot, Lindelof, Fred, Dan James, all done by mid-June. Eric Bailly, I think, was another one as well. We've also done deals in July that we were intensely linked to now in June that get done a few weeks later. At the moment, nobody is advanced with Man United. Not even like it'll get officially done in 3 weeks' time because we're doing the personal terms now. I don't know, and I don't want to say what some of you say, which is this is being done on purpose. They're dragging the manager thing out so that the summer becomes smaller, and the smaller the summer comes, the less we have to pay. I mean, there are people out there saying they'll keep Ten Hag, they won't do any business, we'll have a shit season, then they'll sack him, and then they'll bring Southgate in. There are conspiracies like that where INEOS know they can't spend any money this summer, but next summer they can. So let's burn another summer and burn another season, and then next summer we'll be in a better position financially. I mean, I don't want to believe stuff like that. I think it's far-fetched, but they are contracting this summer. Like, with every day that passes, the window becomes smaller. And in that summer transfer window, where we are at the moment, as smaller as it gets, you've still got to decide on the manager. You've still got over 10 players that need to be sold or removed, and you've still got 5 or 6 or 7 players that need to be brought in. That's a lot. You know, you're talking 17, 18 deals and a manager, all in the space of half of June, July, and half of August before a season starts, and a tour. So there's so much that needs to be done, and at the moment there isn't a lot being done. And I know that, you know that. Like, we know, we've played the game. We know nothing's getting done because United is a sieve. And that's why last week people were talking about, we'll know by Friday, and they're doing all the eyes and everything like that, because they know that stuff leaks out from United. So if you pretend you know something, it looks like you know something. But nothing is leaking out of United at the moment. And people want to say, oh yeah, this is because INEOS have changed everything. INEOS have stopped the leaks. Mate, you've got to understand what the leaks were in the first place if you think INEOS have suddenly stopped all the leaks. The leaks out of Man United were multiple. All over the place. There's no way INEOS have plugged those leaks. They haven't. They might have plugged some of them, and they may well plug some of them. They may well plug all of them, but they haven't plugged them. The reason there's no news coming out at the moment, and some people don't want to admit it, the reason no news is coming out of United around transfers or sales or the manager is because there is no news. Like, we're not secretly about to announce Michael Elise because we've been working on it silently for 2 weeks. Apparently we just signed that. I'm joking. We're not doing it. And also, when it comes to forget the manager situation. When it comes to transfers, it's actually in everybody's interest that it leaks out because it generates momentum. It can lead to bidding wars and all sorts. So you can't keep, a Crystal Palace going to be happy to keep Man United's discussions with Michael Elise quiet? No. We know Chelsea are probably going to win that race because they're actually in the race. He might be waiting for Man United. That might be why they haven't got the done deal yet. But I think he probably will go to Chelsea. But yeah, there's no news coming out of United at the moment because there is no news. We're not deep into negotiations with anybody. There are talks going on around Mason Greenwood because he wants to resolve his future. But beyond that, I mean, what's Donny van de Beek doing with his career? What's Christian Eriksen doing playing at the Euros? Like, there are players that just need to go that aren't even doing anything either. Nick James says players value will come from Euros and the Copa America, says Nick. What worries me is that teams will see a need to sell as a fire sale and try and get players on the cheap, which affects budget, says Andy. I agree and I disagree, Andy. I think that everybody knows that Chelsea need to sell. They do. Everybody knows that Chelsea need to sell. And the funny thing about Chelsea is they're going to get predominantly all of their money from Premier League clubs, where if them Premier League clubs went, well, that's a rival, let's make their life difficult. And yet, Villa want Gallagher. That left back that Newcastle have had on loan, they're going to pay for. Premier League clubs want Chalobah. So, yes, you could have a scenario where people look at you and go, it's a fire sale, let's make it difficult for them. But if you've got good players to sell, they won't do that. No one's looking at Chelsea and going, oh, they need to sell, no, because more than one club wants Conor Gallagher. So it's not Our problem is, yes, we need to sell, but so do Chelsea. But Chelsea have got lots of buyers. Our problem is our players are shit that we're trying to sell. So then you're in trouble. If Donny van der Beek was Conor Gallagher, we would have 3 or 4 Premier League clubs that want him. But Donny van der Beek has been on loan to 2 or 3 clubs and failed. And he's failed at Man United. So there's no big queue. And actually people will go, well, we're not going to give you any money for him. So that's the problem that we face, is that we've just got players on big wages that nobody else wants because we've made massive mistakes. Do you think Casemiro's going to go? And Jim says, we ain't selling that many because the crap players will stay. That is the problem. Nick says, I don't think much will happen till 1st of July. Well, I hope that... I hope something happens with the manager. Michael says, do you think things are actually gaining steam with Neves? I do. I do, mate. I do. I genuinely do. I think there's too much. I don't think we can do this deal because I think he's too expensive and he's too high profile. And I think he's got the potential to be one of the best players in Europe in the next few years. I don't think we can do those sort of deals. And some would say we shouldn't be doing those sort of deals anyway. But there is definitely something going on with United there. And I hope it's not wasted something, because it's a bit like going for Frankie de Jong 2 years ago. What a great player, but you always felt that it wasn't going to happen. But we have got a different ownership now. So you sort of go, well, maybe they are. Maybe there is a chance. But I agree with Matthew. I think City will probably go and get him like that. Lee says, Dan Ashworth is a prat. He wanted Southgate as Newcastle as well. Is this the British core thing that INEOS are on about? I don't understand the British core thing at all. I've said this before. I don't get it. Shay says, just in from Fabrizio, Ten Hag sacked, in shocked. No, it isn't. And Sticks says, hi Mark, do you think we can get 50 to 70 million with the sales of Hannibal for 10, 15 for Pellistri, 10, 15 and Greenwood for 30 to 40? I don't know who's going to give us 10 million for Hannibal. I don't know who's going to give us 15 for Pellistri. Yeah, I think we're going to struggle to sell players. I really, really do. I think the only players that have any value that I can see are Mason Greenwood. There will be some value to Casemiro, but with 2 years in his contract and we paid 60 for him, that's not going to help us with FFP anyway. Harry Maguire has a value, about 25 million quid. Victor Lindelof probably has a value around 15 to 20 million. Scott McTominay is around 25 million. And that's it. I can't see Wan-Bissaka, probably another 20, 25 million. They're the only players that I look at and go, there's some value there. Wan-Bissaka, Maguire, Lindelof, McTominay, Greenwood. I don't know. Jadon Sancho, I don't think anyone's going to give us any money because of his wages. Unless you can sell unless you can sell someone like a Rashford or a Bruno, which most of us would say we don't want to see that happen. Or if you do want to see it happen, who's going to? No one wants Rashford. And in the case of Bruno, again, I don't really think there's a club out there that's going to come forward and give him, apart from Saudi Arabia, which he won't want to do. So I think we're going to struggle. I think we're going to really struggle to sell players. Reagan says, what about Ericsson for 5 million? But the problem with that is, where's he going to go? Turkey. They probably can afford 5 million, but they can't afford 140 grand a week, which is what he's on with a year left on his contract. Ericsson should go. And probably will go, and he's the sort of player that might want to take a pay cut to play. But, on the other hand, he could be like a lot of players we've had over the last 10 years who just go, you gave me a contract, you gave me stupid wages, I'm not going to go anywhere. So, there we go. NAU says, I think it's going to be Southgate. I bloody hope not, mate. I bloody hope not. There's a story here from Give Me Sport saying that representatives of Onana for Everton have reached out to United to see what their thoughts are. I mean, I've heard about him and I've heard about him being linked to Man United for quite a long time and Arsenal, but I just, again, Everton are going to want a lot of money for a player that I just think is a massive, massive, massive risk. Yeah, big one. I'm just reading here again. What somebody's just saying. Is it not so obvious that Southgate does well in the Euros? Ten Hag has a bad start to the season, gets the sack, and then Southgate's in for Christmas. I mean, I don't want Ten Hag to get the sack. I don't want Ten Hag to get the sack. Slow Sports News. But I don't want that in my head either. I don't want us to keep Ten Hag and be thinking Southgate could come in after any bad result. I don't want that. I want a commitment to Ten Hag. I want a 2 or 3 year contract. I don't want, let's see what happens with Ten Hag, and then every time there's a bad result, you're thinking Southgate. I'd rather we give a 3 year deal to Pochettino, to be honest, or De Zerbi, or Tuchel, or any other manager I don't want, but would rather take over Southgate. I don't want the Southgate scenario ever at Man United. And I don't like the idea of Ten Hag staying and then Southgate being there in the background. I would rather we sack Ten Hag and give Pochettino 3 years. I don't want Gareth Southgate anywhere near this club. It's got nothing to do with Eric Ten Hag. I don't want Gareth Southgate anywhere near Man United. Anywhere near. And look, taking off my Ten Hag bias for a moment, because I can do that, I want Ten Hag to stay. You know that, all right? Let's leave that at the door. Let's walk inside. If Ten Hag isn't here, who should be the manager? Well, I don't like any of the candidates, but what kind of prat consortium sits there and goes, Tuchel, De Zerbi, Pochettino, I want Southgate. Southgate's the guy. Tuchel, Pochettino, De Zerbi, Southgate's the guy. I mean, what sort of circus is that? You should go to prison for saying that. If you're on a committee and you're talking about the next Man United manager and you're going, Pochettino's available, Tuchel's available, De Zerbi's available, and also Gareth Southgate I think is a good option. Get out. You're fired instantly. In fact, you can't sack me. You've got to give him a notice. No, I haven't. Check your contract. It's there in clause A. If you ever mention Southgate as a Man United manager, you're instantly sacked. You don't pass go. You don't get £200. You go straight to prison. Piss off. You're out. I mean, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. But there are a lot of people out there who say, we're not going to get Southgate. We're not going to get Southgate. And I hope they're right. But where they're wrong is we've definitely recommended Southgate and he's definitely admired. And we've definitely had some minor or major or whatever discussions you want to talk about, like we have with other managers as well. But yeah, I don't understand how you can be talking about De Zerbi, Pochettino, Tuchel, and then go Southgate. I mean, this guy doesn't get a job at Leicester, and they've got no manager. Like, he's shit. He's absolutely shit. How he gets linked with the Man United job is crazy to me. You have to consider he'll be easy to work with. I couldn't give a shit, mate. I couldn't give a shit. You know, my Dyson Hoover's easy to hoover with, but he ain't going to become Man United manager. You know, it's got a great sucking action, but it can't be Man United manager. Chelsea don't have to sell by the 30th of June. It's not the Chelsea stand, Francis. Don't give a shit about Chelsea. It's the United stand. Was using the example of Chelsea. Do need to sell players this summer. Hence, they find it easy because they've got players that people actually want to buy. That was the end of the Chelsea conversation. We don't want to talk about Chelsea. Hi, Mark. A bit off topic, but could you decrease the volume of your end of video clip? It sounds like a gunshot every time one of your videos ends. Don't know what you're talking about, Maura. And not only in the sense that I can't be asked to help you out, Maura, but I genuinely don't know what you're talking about, so I can't help you. So much anti-English hate in the chat, says Winston. I don't think there's any anti-English hate at all. I'm actually English. It's about... we're talking about the next manager of Manchester United. Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, English hate. Read Juventus would trade Chiesa for Greenwood. I don't agree. Dop. I don't agree with swap deals. I think they're very, very difficult deals to do. I like this one. Jamie says, your Dyson's got a great sucking action, but it doesn't mean it's going to appear in Fake Taxi. Great one. That's the answer to NAU, who says, Southgate would be easy to work with. Exactly. What's that got to do with managing Man United? Nicholas says your Dyson Hoover would be better than Southgate as a manager. And Southgate, Rashford and Roy Keane, unless we want these players out, then yeah, he hates Man United after Roy Keane incident, says Freddie. Great show this morning, says Just Kevin. Yeah, I'm going to end it there because I'm on later. And I'm also recording a Euros podcast that's going out tomorrow. And I might do a little bit more. If anyone's been watching my career modes for the Euros, I might do another country. So I've done England, I've done Scotland. I'm thinking I might do Denmark today, or maybe Portugal actually, so I might do that this afternoon. I'm sorry, I've been wearing this in support for Kobe, and I've not been wearing it for that reason actually. It's just a new design that we've got out, but yeah, absolute nonsense that the press were going after him. What happened to the F1 watch along, says Mr. Andrew? Well, F1 went shit. There's better things to do with your time, so there we go. I might do Portugal this afternoon about 2 o'clock on my channel, so keep an eye on Twitter and stuff, but I might do that this afternoon. If you want to get one of these t-shirts, by the way, we've also got, this is my favourite, I just didn't have time to put it on. Look at this colour, lovely. There we go. Brand new out, links in the video somewhere, or just go United Stand Shopify. We do ship those worldwide. Thanks everyone for watching, absolute legends. Will it be a big week ahead? I don't know. I'm not going to do eyes, ears, knees and toes or anything like that, or TikToks or anything like that. But it could be this week. But what I will say is we've got a great community and we will cover whatever's going to happen. 8 o'clock show tonight is back, Sunday night show. And if anything happens in between, of course, we will go live. Thank you, everybody. Great to be back. Have a great day, evening, or whatever you're doing. And I'll speak to you all in a bit. Take care. What's this bloody bang at the end of the video he's talking about? Bloody